Hello everyone, it's Connal Finlay here, the owner and director of the Cellar store down in New Zealand, and welcome to today's episode of the Cellar TV. So, we're drinking quite an interesting and special wine today. It is a red wine, but it's a red sweet wine. So you don't often hear of many red sweet wines. Of course, usually when you do think of sweet wines or dessert wines, you think of sauternes or sort of sweet Rieslings and terms like botrytis, noborot or late harvest or ice wine. They all tend to sort of prop up when you're thinking about sweet wines, and you don't usually think of sweet red wines. Now, of course, they are a very, very small category, generally speaking, even as far as sweet wine is concerned, which is a small enough category in the grand scheme of wine production as it is. And that's what makes this particular wine so interesting. And so this has been in the fridge, and there was a little bit of label damage here just because it sort of got a little bit too cold, so you can't really see too well here. But we'll sort of bring it up to the camera a little bit, but I'm sure we'll figure out a nice little picture for you, so you can actually see the proper label. And so what it is, it's from Corrado Tonelli, that is the winery, and this is from their Visner range, their Visner di Pergola is what it's called, but also Vino e Visicole. And so what it is, as I said, it's a sweet red wine, and it's made up from 50% Sangiovese and 50% Montepulciano. And what's interesting is, I'm not sure of the exact amount because it's not 100%, but I think it might be about 50% of the overall grapes, so about 25% of the Sangiovese and another 25% of the Montepulciano would have been dried out, so raisined out, or what they call passito. So where they pick the grapes off the vines and then they put them onto big sort of racks or sheets and then they dry them out, and then that sort of turns them into raisins. It gets rid of some of the water in the actual grapes themselves, and then, as I said, well, they raisin, and then that concentrates the flavours and concentrates the sugars and the colour and everything that's found in the grapes themselves. And that creates a much more sort of sweeter, much more richer, much more concentrated sort of wine. In this case, of course, it's a red wine, so that's really quite interesting. And another interesting fact about this is, for about 2 to 3 months, it differs every single vintage. This is the 2014 vintage, and it differs every single vintage, but for about 2 to 3 months, I think the most they ever did it was 4 months potentially, and they actually macerate the wine. So it is a sweet red wine, but it's macerated with black cherries. And so that gives us really quite intense cherried flavour, which is lovely. Anyway, so it is sweetened, a sweet red wine, but it isn't fortified. So it actually is 14%, right on the dot there. So it's quite interesting. If you like sort of the style of Banyuls, which is a fortified red wine, for a sweet red wine, down in the south of France, or you like things like Ruby Port, but you don't necessarily want to have those fortified wines because they are between 17, 18, 19 or 20% alcohol, but you do like those sorts of flavours, that really concentrated red wine flavour, those sort of juicy cherry, chocolatey sort of flavours, then this is a fantastic alternative because it has all of that. It has that sweetness, it has that sort of richness and intensity, but it's only 14%. Anyway, let's give it a little sniff, shall we? So immediately on the nose, obviously cherries, they're going to rise up. So you're getting a lot of that sort of really, well, macerated cherry, dare I say it, but you're getting a lot of those sort of black cherry flavours, of course, but then there's also, because the Montepulciano and the Sangiovese, the actual grapes that made the red wine in the beginning, they're actually very, very ripe and very, very concentrated. So you're getting this really sort of intense blackberry and blackcurrant fruit. And a lot of sort of cooked raspberry sort of flavours. So a lot of very, very sort of intense, sort of jammied or jammed red fruit. It's lovely. A little bit of oak influence here as well, so you are getting sort of that sort of those toasty sort of clove, a little bit of cinnamon flavours. So it is quite an intense and complex wine. Anyway, let's give it a taste. So it's certainly sweet, and it actually tastes, to me, this might sound a little bit strange, but it tastes like fruit bread. If you know what fruit bread is, it's sort of, well, it's like a loaf of bread, and it's got a whole bunch of raisins and sultanas and things like that in there. And so it tastes like fruit bread, and I usually toast fruit bread, just as a little bit of a treat, you know. It usually has a little bit of cinnamon and things like that in there, in the bread itself, and you toast it, you have a little bit of butter, sort of a little bit too much butter perhaps, and it's a perfect delight. Or if it's like hot cross buns or those sorts of things, that's exactly what this tastes like. It has got that cinnamon there, those clovey, those mixed spiced sort of flavours in there. Really quite intense and concentrated there. So that's going to be coming largely from the oak, and also the fact that these have been, as I say, concentrated because they've been dried out, the grapes themselves. But yes, of course you are getting that cherry flavour coming through. But it's really well balanced. You would think that something that's aged with, or macerated with cherries for about 2 to 3 months, you would think would be really intensely cherry, but it's actually a lot of sort of blackcurrant and sort of raspberry sort of flavours coming through. It's delicious, absolutely delicious. So as I say, if you're wanting to have that sort of fortified wine feel, the flavour profile, those sort of ruby ports and all the rest, but you don't want to have that big knock your head off 20% ABV, then this is a fantastic alternative. And I'd have to say, if you're drinking, if you're wanting a wine to drink or something to drink with chocolate cake or sort of Black Forest Gâteau or something like this, this is it. This is it. Without a doubt, this is it. This is delicious. Anyway, so please do like away, comment away, tell us if you've ever tried it, or if you've got any other sort of favourites from these particular producers or anyone else that does similar sorts of wines. We want to hear about it. It's all fun. It's all fantastic. And please do share away, subscribe away, and that's all we can really ask. And so please do share and subscribe. And from us, cheers.